Hello neighbor, this is Curt at eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at these Titan tire cables in a diagonal pattern on our 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Now if you have any experience with these Titan tire cables or other tire chains, please share them in the comments below. We love to hear from our neighbors' experience. It only helps us help other neighbors find exactly what they're looking for. Now let's take a look at the chains. Now on our Jeep Grand Cherokee L today, we're using 265/60 R18 tires. These tire cables have a roller link that's not going to protrude as much off of the tire as some of the square link tire chains that are a bit more traditional. This is going to give you a much smoother, less bumpy ride as you're going through that snow and ice. It's in what's called a diagonal pattern, which really kind of gives us the best of both worlds when it comes to the ladder and diamond style patterns. Ladder style patterns usually are going to offer you much better traction and stopping power, while diamond pattern offers better grip on the road during your turns. The diagonal pattern, as we have here, really kind of borrows both of those in order to give us a good traction on the road in those snow and icy conditions. Now for really, really heavy snow, really heavy ice, one of those styles with the bigger square links is probably a better option for you. But these are a great option if you just want something to keep in your car to be able to install very easily in a roadside situation. Another great thing about these tire cables is that they come with their own rubber tensioners, which is fantastic because I always recommend these anyway just to ensure a snug fit around the tire. Now let's go ahead and take a look at how we got these on here. Now before you ever install any kind of tire cables or tire chains, you always want to lay them out flat and give them a little bit of an inspection. Now while cables like this don't tend to get kinked up like chains do sometimes, it's still a good idea to look through and make sure you don't have any twisting or kinks or anything like that, because the last place you want to get that figured out is while you're traveling down the road. Now I mentioned earlier that these cables have these roller links, which you can see right here. They're in little sections that'll be able to rotate and roll around the cable and be able to give you that smoother ride. Now you probably noticed that I'm wearing gloves, and I always recommend wearing gloves whenever you're using tire chains because these can get you pinched. There are some ends here that might give you some cuts and things, so just for the sake of keeping yourself safe, it's a good idea to wear gloves. Not only that, but a situation where you might have to throw these on the roadside, you're probably going to be having gloves on anyway. So after I inspect everything and make sure it's all looking good, I'm making sure that it's laying with these tire side markers up. That ends up putting the hooks away from the sidewalls of the tire. So when I'm laying it down, I'm laying it hooked down before I put these on. You're going to notice some of the connection points here. The first connection point we're going to make is in the back of the tire, which will be up here. We'll have a simple loop chain link here and a hook on the other end that'll connect it behind the tire. On the front of the tire, it's just a cable fed hook and latch. It'll go right through there and hook in just like that. That is also going to be the case on the other front connection here and here, where we're actually going to have two connection points. Which one you use just depends on just how tight we can get this around our tire. Now that we've got everything inspected and laid out, we're again going to want to make sure that this middle section is not connected as we feed this around the back of our tire. Now, one of the great things about tire cables like this is that you're not going to get a lot of the twisting and things like that that can happen with a linked set of tire chains as you're feeding this around the back. I'm going to come over here and grab the other end and bring it around. Now, as we're bringing this around, we're bringing this open connection around to the front. We're going to do the same over here. Make sure those are in a good place that they can get connected. Then what we're going to do is come to the back of the tire. We're going to grab that open loop end I talked about earlier. Bring it on up to the top, and we're going to do the same thing with our hook end back here. As I bring these in, I'm going to go ahead and connect two of those together. And I'm going to try to get as much of this tire chain around to the front as I can, just to help ensure a good snug fit. And again, because of how we laid down these cables before we got them hooked up, we're making sure that open hook is facing away from the sidewalls of our tires. Once we've got this brought around with a decent amount of slack as such, we're going to go ahead and make our bottom connection here. Now that that connection is done, we're going to work with our chains a little bit and make sure we can find enough slack to make this connection here. And sometimes it takes a little bit of working and maneuvering to make that happen. Just coming up barely short. We're going to see if we can get a little more slack out of it. After we got some more adjusting done, we're able to get it through this notch here and make our connection. Now that we've got our connection made, you can see that there's still a decent amount of slack here in the front, and that's exactly where our rubber tensioner is going to come in handy. There's going to be 6 different connection points, so we're connecting it in a star pattern around here, going from one side to the opposite, just to keep good tension. Now the way that these are built, you are going to experience every once in a while these might slip off of the tensioner a little bit, but that's really okay. They just pop right back on. And just like we talked about with the open end of the hook facing outward, even though these are a plastic, they're probably not going to do any serious damage to the tire itself. We also want to make sure they're not going to do anything to the wheel. So it's just a good precaution to make sure that you're doing these with the open side out. So we'll start at the top here, hook that around, and then we're going to go to the exact opposite end and get that hooked as well. And we're going to continue to do that around the tire, hooking one end opposite to the other. There should still be some slack in the cable there if you need to get it to reach to you a little bit more. Now that we've got all the tensioners connected, you can see there's really almost no slack at all in this front cable. Everything is tight around the tire, and it's looking like a pretty good fit. Now, before you take it out on the road, even after all that checking, it's always a good idea to roll the car forward and back a few feet a few times, just to make sure in motion and with the road contact, nothing is coming loose on you before you need to do any adjustments. So overall, though, I think this is a great option for you if you want to have something in the vehicle that you can just kind of break out in an emergency roadside situation, have an easy install without having to get into the snow and ice underneath the car to get these on. So I do think it's a great option to keep in your vehicle for those type of situations. Once again, this is Curt at eTrailer. Thanks for stopping by.